Hello and welcome to another Leica review. Today I wanted to answer some of the questions that I've been receiving about my latest reviews. Particularly it was about the Voigtlander lenses that are going to be used on Leica M9, M10 and also the older Leica cameras. Now there have been a lot of questions about the bokeh and a lot of questions about the way the image quality is rendered on Leica cameras. So in those respects, I wanted to answer the first question about the bokeh. Now, a lot of people have considered the bokeh to be sharp, some people have considered it to be harsh, and other people have considered the bokeh to be something that is not as pleasing as the Leica. First of all, let's answer that question. Well, the bokeh at f1.1 is very close to f0.95, which is the Noctilux. If you look at the older Noctiluxes, which is f1, you're going to see that the bokeh characteristics are very different, yet the out of focus area is still very blurry. And that is the reason that these lenses are made to be shot at wide open apertures. And that's one of the reasons they work great as portrait lenses. And it is for this reason these lenses are meant to be shot at f1.1, f1.4 in an f2 still attain that incredible bokeh. Now, one thing you will notice about the bokeh is that sometimes when the background is a little busy, it may seem like the bokeh is harsh or that it may be a little swirly. But the question is that the look that appeals to you? There is no such thing as the best lens or great lens. There's only the lens that suits your purposes. If you, for example, you are shooting with a Noctilux, of course, you'll want that particular look. That is why you purchased that lens. And that is the look that you're after. If you're going to shoot, for example, with a Noctilux at f5.6, you might as well use a Sumilux or a Summicron. You're going to get pretty much the same look. When you dial down the aperture and you open the aperture wide open, what you're going to find is that the bokeh characteristics become more pronounced. In this case, this one here, the Voigtlander, has a particular look. It has different coatings than what Leica uses. It may be considered a look that is a little bit more colder look because the tones are not as warm, and this may be the look that you're after. For example, this lens is particularly nice if you're, for example, photographing at night. I prefer this look over most of the other lenses that I use in my work. It is not because this lens is superior in optics. It is very good in optics and it delivers great results. The reason I choose this is because this lens delivers a particular bokeh and a particular coloring that is pleasing. Beyond that, it has a bokeh that is very unique due to the fact that it has 10 aperture blades. The more aperture blades you have in a lens generally translates to a more rounder bokeh. In this particular case, the Voigtlander has that. So for all those people that are calling this lens to have a harsh bokeh, you have to remember there are three things that are very important. First of all, your distance from the subject matter. It will greatly affect the way the background is rendered out of focus. Of course, secondly, the distance that is behind the subject matter. For example, if the subject matter has a very, very shallow depth of field and you have the objects in the background that are close to the subject, it's going to appear much busier than if the objects are further removed. That's why you will find that the photographs taken in studios have a neutral background, like a gray background or a white background, because it is unimportant. It renders the bokeh to be unimportant as well, because there is nothing to make it interesting except the fact that the subject matter is the one that is in question. That's the one that you are looking at. And that is the way to examine the photographs. If you are putting something in the background, it should be part of your storytelling. If that harsh background, for example, you call, is a background that enhances the look of your photography, well, very well, that is the one that you should be attaining and you should be striving to do. And that is particularly important, for example, if you're doing street type of photography or you're photographing musical bands that play grunge rock or rock music. You want to maybe create that look. Also, if you're photographing environments where the harsher conditions of life exist, then it may be a look that you're after instead of that creamy bokeh that is often associated with beautiful portraitures. Now, this does not mean that this lens does not render beautiful bokeh. It does render, but it's a particular look that you must like. If you do like that look, it's a lens that you can use. And the price of it is incredibly low. It costs less than 1/10 the amount of a Noctilux. So I don't mind throwing this lens into my bag and trying to use it on my, for example, Leica M10, because I know it's going to give me results that I'm after. I use this lens particularly, for example, when I'm going on a photo shoot and I want to have a different look from the ones that I'm using. Now, if the bokeh is what we are after, it's important to remember that you can use medium format cameras like the Leica S2 or Leica S. They're going to give you a much shallower depth of field. It's going to give you incredible detail, which brings me to the second important factor. This lens has an incredible image quality. I will challenge anyone to be able to differentiate between the image quality that you will get with this lens versus a Simulux. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because while the conditions of the images may be different, the resolution that the camera is able to hold, which is 24 megapixels, is not all that high to differentiate between the quality of the images. It is for this reason the lens is less of a factor than how the camera is able to resolve the images. For that reason, it is important to have higher and higher numbers if you want to see those differences. That's why, for example, 35 millimeter format, which is the current full frame, has gone up to 50 megapixels. In those images, if you were to zoom in and zoom in, you're going to see finer and finer details, whereas when you have a low resolution camera, you're not going to get those. But this also comes to a point where you have to understand why you are using a particular lens. For example, if you're using this lens and you put this on for example, like a T2, which is a very nice camera, you are going to get a particular look. But that doesn't mean that that image is not usable if you blow it up to a large size and put it in your house, or if you use it for exhibition purposes. Certainly, if you are going to use your photography only for demonstrations online and you want to put it on websites or print it in magazines, those images that are 16 megapixels or even 12 megapixels are going to be more than sufficient. So all those numbers of having higher and higher resolution does not render images any different. It just means that you are using those images for a particular look. Which brings me to the most important factor, the lens quality and the build. Now, this is a metal construction lens. It's an older design. And this older design is a look that you must be happy with if you are going to purchase this. There is no point of comparing this lens to, for example, a Canon or a Nikon lens, because those are made of plasticky parts. Those are parts that are going to be failing in one day when, for example, the autofocus mechanisms wear out. This is a manual focus lens, so this lens is going to last you probably a lifetime or two. So it is for this reason, if you choose this lens, it is a lens that is going to deliver results. Now, you are probably wondering what the images are going to be looking like. So I'm going to provide some images and we can talk those in more detail in our next review. But I've already made 2 reviews and I've put those links at the bottom. You can actually see the images that I've captured with this lens in those 2 articles. And also you can see how the images look when the background is continuously changing. And those are the images that you should refer as your basis for determining if this lens is for you. Beyond that, you can also do a lot of changes to the image that you have. For example, the Photoshops and Lightrooms have these special settings that remove chromatic aberration. And they also do lens correction. Now, a lot of the images that you capture with your Leica M10 already have these distortions and chromatic aberrations baked in, so that they are removed automatically as soon as you capture the photograph. So these are going to improve the image quality of your lens, because when you capture it, the distortions can be removed up to a certain point. But no lens is perfect. It's not going to ever be 100%. Even the Apo 50mm has a very good image quality at f5.6, almost no distortion. But at f2, it is going to have some amount of distortion. So even then, the lenses are only limited by the physical qualities that it has. But when you take an image and you import it to a Lightroom, you can make these adjustments. So you can change the vignetting, which you can remove it. You can improve the distortions. You can also improve the image quality by sharpening or turning down the sharpness. And also the saturation and the contrast can be changed if you shoot in RAW or DNG formats. So speaking of a lens quality is only partial to the fact that you can make these adjustments in post-processing. Now, post-processing is a very important field, some of it called retouching. Retouching is very important, and it's a field and industry in itself. So your images, although they may look horrible at times, can be adjusted to bring out those highlights or shadows or improve any aspect of that image. Now, I work in film industry as well, and my films, for example, sometimes are shot in low light, and we want to remove those noise aspects, or we want to bring up the highlights, or we want to bring down some of the highlights. So what we do is we change them in post-production in the same way that you have to learn to use Lightroom if you shoot digital. Now, if you do shoot digital, you also must learn that your photography is limited not by the camera or the lens that you use, but your abilities. If you have not taken a Photoshop workshop, or if you have not taken a photography workshop, then your abilities are limited to your learnings that you have had from your friends or what you have watched online. What is important is, before you buy a very expensive lens, learn to use those lenses, bring out those qualities that those lenses have, and make them shine. This is the reason it is very, very important to own the right lenses and have those lenses be your friend. And to have those lenses as your friend, you must learn the basics of photography. This is the reason why I choose lenses according to the tasks, not because I choose them for my liking. I choose them for their purposes. And this is something that I always recommend all my workshop attendees to learn, also for my photography students. So I hope I have answered some of your questions, and I look forward to seeing you in our next review. Thank you for watching.